Hey, welcome to another edition of Lion of Prophecy Television. Your host, Brandon Gallups and Carl Gallups. We're having a good time in the studio before we even get started, but it's good that you've joined with us today. And we're probably going to split this up into a couple of editions because we have a lot to say about this.
That's right.
Yeah, the topic, of course, today is the technologies of the Bible. And we've talked about this a lot in various shows because there's no way we can get around the times in which we're living in the explosion of technology.
That's right.
We've done a show before on, for example, transhumanism, CRISPR-Cas9, genetic editing, splicing. That's not really the focus of this show. The focus of this particular show is just to talk about, right now, in general, the fact that every prophecy concerning the last days that speaks of anything technological, I'm talking about, you can go back to Daniel where it speaks of running to and fro and knowledge increasing. You can go into the book of Revelation where it speaks about the whole world sees something, the whole world takes a mark, images are caused to live and breathe. I mean, all of these things, and there's more, that were spoken of thousands of years ago, the newest being 2,000 years ago, the New Testament documents. But you get back into Daniel and now you're 2,500 years ago. And these kinds of things that were spoken of, and the assumptions that were made about the world, the whole world, and following one person, and the whole world being deceived. I mean, how can that happen without some freaky technology?
That's right.
If you were living 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, how could that happen? Well, see, but it's not freaky technology to us. Now, that's the point we're trying to make, is that everything the Bible speaks of for 2,000 years, just up until the last decade or two at the most, was science fiction.
That's right.
But now, all of those technologies, you know, the exponential growth in transportation technologies, information technologies, communication technologies. It's unbelievable, Brandon. Yeah. We were talking just before the program, just before we started rolling the tape, that and there's another one, tape. We all say tape now. It's not tape. It's all digital technology. But just before we started rolling the show, we were talking about cell phone technology.
That's right.
And, you know, it's funny, if people are watching this show decades from now, they'll laugh at how archaic the technology we're talking about now. But cell phone technology, we carry around, most of us, in our back pockets or our shirt pocket or jacket pocket, or, you know, like today's youth, they're born with it in their hand.
That's right.
It's molded.
Fitted,
it's
right.
molded to their hand. But we carry it around, I'm just going to say, in our back pocket. What's it? Well, an instantaneous communication device with the entire world. I mean, literally using as listening and speaking, but also you can connect to the internet, which is what? At your hands. It's an entire library that could not fill. There's no building in the world large enough to contain the information that's out there in the library of information. A lot of it's good information, some of it's abject evil. But it's in our hands instantly. The Tower of Babel has been recreated.
That's right.
We can do instant language translations using what's in our hands, just a little device. That's science fiction.
No, it is.
Just a little more than a decade ago at the time of this filming.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what we want to talk about. What are some of your opening thoughts on this as we get going?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you've covered a lot of them. Think about medical technologies.
Yeah.
You know, and we see them in the Bible, performed as a miracle through the hands of Jesus. And I'm hear me very clearly, I'm not diminishing that when Jesus touched a person, it was miraculous. The hand of God was laid upon them.
Use the illustration about vision, because that was perfect. We were talking about that earlier.
Okay, so Jesus heals a blind man.
Right.
Okay. Now, think of this. We go into a person that can be blind or right on the verge of blindness, goes in for an operation with a laser.
Right.
And the eye in just minutes. And
laser technology comes from our discovery of quantum mechanics, which is only a couple hundred years old.
Right.
And laser technology is just decades old.
So within minutes, vision can be cured and restored to better than normal.
Right.
Better than 20/20 vision.
Right.
Through this technology. Now, to show you that I'm not diminishing the fact that Jesus touched a blind man's eyes, Where did we as human beings get the ability to discover a laser, to discover quantum mechanics, to discover that we could then take this laser, use it on an eyeball to restore vision? Well, all of that knowledge comes from where?
And who created? Oh, go ahead.
It comes from the hand of God.
That's right. And
so it's a miracle that's being performed through the hands of modern medicine, through technology, that in the day of the Bible, people looked at it and they were awed and wondered. Today, it's become a part of daily life.
Right. And the only way a blind man could be healed 2,000 years ago was by the touch of God through the hand and the finger of God.
That's exactly right.
Now, people who are blind can be healed through technology, but who created the quantum elements?
That's right.
Who created the elements and then gave the knowledge for us to develop laser technology and all of the things that are required to restore hearing and sight and all of these things. We were talking earlier about artificial limbs. You call it transhumanism now, where the technology is melding with humans.
That's right.
Some of that is good. Some of it is absolutely amazing. Now, there are already people looking to use it in evil ways and for militaristic ways and all of that. We've done a show on that. But the point being that we're living in such prophetic times. We're the first generation in the history of the planet to see this explosion of technology that corresponds with biblical technology. And we're not saying that Jesus healing a blind man was mere technology. It was a miracle. It was God with us who touched and showed. The same way He could control the elements, the same way He could take a few loaves of bread and fish and feed 10,000 people, the same way He could command the waves to stop, the same way He could raise a dead man, Lazarus, from the grave.
Walk on the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the point being that 2,000 years ago, when those things were happening through the touch of God with us, those were the only ways those things could happen. Now, all of those things I just said, to one degree, some of them we've been given the knowledge and the technology to pull it off entirely. Others we're still trying, like they're still wanting to manipulate weather completely. And, there are technologies in the headlines about that they're developing for resurrecting the dead or giving eternal life.
Creating life from nothing.
Creating life, head transplants and organ transplants and blending robotics and electronics with human beings and chips implants.
Animals with humans.
Animal and human genetic splicing, CRISPR-Cas9. So we're the only generation in the history of mankind, is what I'm trying to say, to see this just explode before our eyes, and it leaps off the pages of Scripture.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think there's two sides to this technology. Number one is just the amazement that, again, in the times of the Bible, a lot of these things that were spoken of, they were science fiction. A lot of the things that were done through the touch of the hand of God, of course, they were science fiction of their day, right? I mean, to see a blind man that everybody knew from birth was blind, all of a sudden he sees. To literally physically see a limb regrown, science fiction, right? And so I think there's two sides of it. Number one, the miraculous side that God has allowed us to now have these as part of everyday life. Think, again, on the medical side, we have the ability to go into the womb of a mother and perform surgery on a baby that's still in a womb to correct things. Right. And now, how do we even have the ability to know that there's something wrong with the baby in the womb? Right. Well, through X-ray technology. It's the simplest form of quantum mechanics and quantum physics.
And chemical analysis and all of the different things that we have.
Exactly. So there is the amazement side, the wondrous side, the miraculous side of it. But then I think there's also a side of it where people will try and say, well, listen, we're proving now that it wasn't a miracle. Yeah. It was just technology. Right. So there's a danger to it, or a element that may cause some people to doubt things that we saw in the Bible. Say, well, Jesus didn't really perform a miracle, it was technology. Well, but the technology didn't exist during the day. So or maybe we have the danger of we have become godlike. Right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and there are world-famous leaders, technology gurus, who are saying we can become gods.
That's right.
You raised an excellent point about people saying, well, that was just technology they used. And then you immediately said, but where did that come from? One man was the only one that had it.
That's right.
But then you come up and we use the word technology, and that sounds so humanistic, like, well, that's ours. We invented that. But wait, it's just a way of saying that this knowledge is being given to us in these days,
That's
these last days, this exponential growth curve. And some would even say that some of the knowledge is being given to us demonically.
Yes.
Or at least being manipulated demonically, like genetic splicing.
Yeah.
Genetic splicing and CRISPR-Cas9 can be used for wonderful, benevolent things, but it can also be used and is being used for abject evil.
Absolutely.
So the demonic certainly is involved, whether they're actually revealing to us some of this stuff. That was Satan's temptation, one of the temptations in the garden. You can be like the gods if you knew what I knew.
That's right.
If you would just do this, eat of this fruit, you could be like us. So it goes all the way back to the garden. But you're right, that was a brilliant point you made. So the technology of today, is some of it is divinely given, I do believe.
Absolutely.
And divinely
Absolutely.
inspired. Some of it may be demonically inspired.
Mm-hmm.
The point being, I don't know of any technology that's spoken of in the Bible. And the Bible doesn't use the word technology. So when it says the image will be made to live and breathe, the whole world will see, the whole world will take a mark. It just says it, matter-of-factly, because they were looking into the future and they knew what they saw. And so they just said, here's what's going to happen. Now, they didn't say how. They didn't say, and let me tell you about the technology that would be. No, because it was too fantastical for them. They were brought 2,000 years into the future.
The mind couldn't conceive. How would they have explained it to the people?
That's
it was written to the people of their day.
And when it was written, it sounded like science fiction. That's our point. We're the first generation in history to be living in the midst of those technologies that we now take for granted.
That's right. Just a part of life.
The kids growing up in this generation, they take for granted holographics and laser technology and all the medical technology and cell phones and internet and translation, instantaneous translation in the world of library information at your fingertips and instantaneous international communication from your back pocket. They take it for granted. Most of that didn't come about at the time of this filming until a decade ago.
Yeah.
That's how quickly all of this is happening. Well, anyway, that's the point of this episode. We want you to think about these things because it truly is a prophetic marker. We're not setting dates and we're not wringing our hands. Oh my gosh, look what's happening. Listen, we love technology. I love technology. We use it all the time. We're using digital technology and internet technology and all of that right now. But the point being, you can't see this and read the scriptures and ignore the times in which we're living. Something is happening that is unprecedented, and a lot of it is wrapped around technology. Now, in the next episode, we're going to go to another headline, and that is time travel technology. And the study of quantum mechanics is talking about different dimensions and string theory and other world and corresponding worlds.
Parallel universes.
Parallel, that's the word I was looking for. Parallel worlds and universes and the possibility of time travel. We're right at the edge of the potential of time travel. Those are headline news articles now.
That's right.
So we're going to go back and explore what the Bible says about time travel in the next edition.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us in this edition. I bet you can't wait till the next edition, and we look forward to sharing that with you. Lion of Prophecy Television, Brandon Gallups, Carl Gallups, thank you for joining us. May the Lord bless you and keep you always.